Alaska, the last frontier. A land of rugged beauty where the vast wilderness stretches endlessly, swallowing all signs of civilization. Here the mountains stand like silent sentinels, watching over a land where nature rules and the cold bites deep. It is a place where people go to disappear, sometimes by choice, sometimes not. Tonight, I'll take you to a remote part of the Alaskan wilderness, where a disappearance so strange, so inexplicable, has haunted those who remember it for over 50 years. A lone hunter, an isolated cabin, and a mystery with no answers. This is Whispered Crimes. Settle in, close your eyes, and let the story unfold. The Man Who Vanished. In the fall of 1971, a man named Henry Caldwell arrived in the small town of McCarthy, Alaska, a place where only the truly independent dared to settle. Henry was a seasoned hunter, a man who had lived off the land for decades. Tall, with a weathered face and sharp blue eyes, he was respected in the town for his knowledge of the land and his quiet but friendly nature. He had come to McCarthy for one reason: to prepare for winter in his remote cabin deep in the Wrangell St. Elias Mountains. Each fall, Henry would spend a few weeks in town, stocking up on supplies, canned goods, ammunition, coffee, and the occasional bottle of whiskey. He spoke little, but the locals knew his routine. By late October, he'd be gone, retreating into the wilderness where no roads led. And like clockwork, every spring, Henry would return, leaner, bearded, but very much alive, until one year he didn't. The last known sightings. On October 18th, 1971, Henry was seen for the last time. That morning, he visited the general store, buying his usual supplies, stuffing them into a large canvas sack. He nodded at the store clerk, tipped his hat, and walked out into the cold autumn air. A friend, Charlie Burns, offered him a ride to the trailhead, where Henry would begin his long trek home. The two men shared a cigarette, made small talk, and then, as always, Henry disappeared into the trees, his rifle slung over his shoulder. No one ever saw him again. Weeks passed, then months. By early spring, when Henry should have returned, there was no sign of him. His absence was noticed, but not immediately alarming. After all, this was Alaska. People vanished all the time, whether due to accidents, weather, or simply choosing to walk away from their old lives. But when the ice thawed and the rivers began to flow again, a pilot flying over Henry's usual hunting grounds saw something strange. Smoke rising from the trees, a fire still burning in the dead man's land. The search. A small search party, led by Charlie Burns and two other locals, set out to find Henry. They followed the familiar trail he had taken every year, moving deeper into the vast expanse of forest and ice. The air was still, the kind of quiet that makes you feel like you're the only person left in the world. After nearly a day of hiking, they reached Henry's cabin. It was still standing, but something was off. The door was open. Snow had drifted inside, covering the wooden floor in a thick layer of white. The fire had long since burned out, and the place felt abandoned. But Henry's supplies were there, his canned food neatly stacked, his rifle propped against the wall. Even his boots sat by the bed, as if he had simply stepped out for a moment. But Henry Caldwell was gone. There were no signs of a struggle, no blood, no tracks leading away from the cabin, just emptiness. It was as if the land had swallowed him whole. Theories and whispers. As word spread through McCarthy, the theories began. Some believed Henry had fallen victim to the elements. Maybe he had gone out hunting, slipped on the ice, and met his end in some forgotten ravine. Others whispered darker tales of something unnatural in the woods, an old Alaskan legend come to life. The native Athabascan people speak of the Kushtaka, or land otter men, shapeshifters that lure people into the wilderness, never to return. Could Henry have fallen prey to something beyond human understanding? And then there was the map. Tucked beneath Henry's mattress, the searchers found a crudely drawn map. It marked an area deeper into the mountains, far beyond where he was known to hunt. The words scratched beside it sent a chill down Charlie Burns' spine. They watched from the trees. Who were they? The vanishing deepens. Determined to find answers, Charlie and the search party followed the map. For 3 days, they trekked through the frozen wilderness, deeper than any of them had ever gone. The further they traveled, the more uneasy they became. Animals were scarce. The usual sounds of the forest, birds rustling leaves, had vanished. At night, strange noises echoed through the trees. Not the cries of wolves or bears, but something else. Something that didn't belong. On the 4th day, they found something. A small clearing where the trees grew in a perfect circle. In the center, a pile of bones, animal, but arranged in a way that felt deliberate. And among them, a single human tooth. Henry's? The men didn't wait to find out. They turned back, moving quickly, pushing through exhaustion and fear. By the time they reached McCarthy, they were different men, pale, shaken, unwilling to speak of what they had seen. What really happened? To this day, Henry Caldwell's fate remains unknown. Some believe he was taken by the elements, lost in a storm, or buried beneath an avalanche. Others believe he left of his own accord, seeking something in those mountains that he never found. And then there are those who think he was taken by something else. No one has lived in Henry's cabin since. It still stands, rotting, forgotten. Pilots flying over the area sometimes claim to see strange lights moving through the trees. And every so often, hikers in the Wrangell Mountains report an eerie feeling, like they're being watched. By who or by what? That is a question the Alaskan wilderness refuses to answer. Final thoughts. Henry Caldwell's story is just one of many mysteries buried in the wilds of Alaska. Over the years, countless people have disappeared into the vast, untamed land, leaving only questions behind. Is it the wilderness itself that claims them? Or is there something more lurking in the last frontier? What do you think happened to Henry? Share your thoughts below, and join me next time on Whispered Crimes, where we travel to another dark corner of America's forgotten past. Until then, stay safe and don't stray too far into the woods.